Congratulations on the incredible success of this film and your nominations and your most recent wins over the weekend with the USC Scripters Award and the Writers Guild Award.
That was a lot of fun.
It's fantastic. Thank you for being here today.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Very excited to have you. When David Fincher got your initial script, it was over 160 pages long, which is 162 pages, which in film world would generally translate to about a minute per page. And the studio was a little bit nervous about that length, and they asked, when they were talking to David about the film, they asked him if he would cut it, and his response was to invite you into his office and to sit down with his iPhone and start the timer, and he asked you just to start reading, and he timed you while you read the script.
Yeah, he told the studio, the script is 162 pages, about 40 pages more than industry average. It's usually about 120 pages. That'll get you the average length feature film. But David told the studio that he didn't think they had to worry, that this was going to be under 2 hours. And on our very first day of work, as he said, he took his the stopwatch app on his iPad, and he asked me to read the script out loud at the pace that I heard it in my head when I was writing it. And he wrote down the timing of each scene, and he reported back to Sony that the movie would be 1 hour and 59 minutes, and the movie is 1 hour and 59 minutes.
It's pretty extraordinary. I was wondering if you could indulge us by reading a page from the opening scene of your movie. I'm not going to time you, though. You don't want to.
I need to switch glasses in order to do this. I'm not kidding. Although I think I know it. Probably. Let's see if I can do it without the script. Did you know there are more people with genius IQs living in China than there are people of any kind living in the United States? That can't possibly be true. It is. What would account for that? Well, first of all, there are an awful lot of people living in China, but here's my point. What? How do you distinguish yourself in a population of people who all got 1,600 on their SATs? Yeah, that's the first 10 lines on there.
David Fincher shot that scene 99 times.
Yeah, we did 99 takes over 2 nights of a very of a physically simple scene, just 3 setups, the master, the 2-shot, and 2 overs, which he did with 2 cameras apiece so that there could be overlapping dialogue. But he did many, many takes. It's not because the first 98 takes were no good, but through that kind of repetition, he allowed the actors to really own the language. You know, if you watch a really terrific musician, if you watch Yo-Yo Ma play the cello, you can see that it's been years and years since he's had to think about the notes, that he's just playing it from someplace else. And that's how it had to be with the actors and the words. So the repetition over those 2 nights allowed them to throw off the words like they were just tossing off their phone number.
What was it like for you to watch that happen?
It was great. I mean, that's a real luxury for a writer. It's roughly the equivalent of what happens during previews when you're doing a new play. That again, the actors just start to own the material, they own the language, and they can do it in the kind of breezy way that you wanted them to. Rather than having it lean toward melodramatic, which is what's going to happen when they have a lot of words to say and part of their mind is searching for the words. They'll act to cover up the fact that they're searching for the words, and you don't want them to do that. So it was great to see, and I would just step in every 5 or 10 takes just to say, hey, it looks great, and step back, maybe make a tiny little adjustment. But that was the reason he did so many takes. That, and as he put it, he wanted to just get rid of whatever performance they were giving in the shower before they came to the set.
Now, I know that writing first scenes is incredibly important to you. Is that where you started writing this script, or did you start more in the middle and then work back to the beginning scene?
I can never do that. I can't skip anything. I have to start at the beginning and go step by step. Anytime that I've been having, I'll report to the director, to the studio, to the network, to whoever it is that I'm working for. I know exactly how it ends. I'm just having trouble with this scene, and they'll say, well, skip that scene, go to the end and go back to it. I can't do it. I have to do what's in front of me. Getting started is the most difficult thing for me and the most important thing for me. The difference between being on page 2 and page nothing is life and death for me. So there was a long research process on this movie that included available research, things like Mark's blog post from that night that you hear in voiceover at the beginning of the movie. And there were cartons and cartons of legal documents that I got walked through by two lawyers, one an intellectual property lawyer and the other a corporate lawyer. And finally, the first-person research, speaking to the people who were present when these events took place. When I was done with all that research, what I had was this. There were two lawsuits brought against Facebook at roughly the same time. The defendant, the plaintiffs, the witnesses, they all walked into a deposition room, they all swore an oath, and they ended up telling three very different versions of the same story. So instead of choosing one and deciding, I think that's the truth, that'll be the story that I tell, or choosing another and deciding, I think that's the sexiest, that'll be the most successful version of the story, I like that there were three different versions of the story. I like courtroom dramas, I like Rashomon, and so I wanted to tell a story about three conflicting versions of the story. So I spent a lot of time pacing around, climbing the walls, trying to figure out how to start. And I went back to Mark's blog post that we hear in voiceover in the movie, and I decided I want to see the scene right before that happens. I want to see what made him so angry at this woman. I'll dramatize that. We will take it all the way through that night when he creates Face Mash, and Face Mash goes viral and crashes the Harvard computer system, all the while cutting back and forth to this, the world's greatest party that he never gets invited to. And then it's around page 20 that I jump to the deposition. It's that we realize this whole thing is going to be in flashback. And the first words out of Mark's mouth are, "That's not what happened. She's lying."
And when you went into production, was that the very first scene that you shot?
No, in fact, first of all, we shot all the deposition room scenes last. We wanted to wait until the end to do that, mostly for Jesse's sake, so that he could have been through this whole thing and just feel a little bit older, a little bit wiser, burnt, angry about this whole thing. And he's playing a different, older Mark in those scenes than the ones that we see earlier. Other than that, you shoot a movie in the order that's just most efficient and economical. So we started off in Cambridge and Boston. The very first scene in the movie we shot is when he meets the Winklevoss twins for the first time, and they ask him, will you help out with this project? Of course, the Winklevoss twins are being played by one actor, Armie Hammer. That's not entirely true. They were played by two actors. They were played by Armie Hammer and an actor you never see named Josh Pence. And depending on what the scene was, either there would be face replacement or, I never quite understood how we were doing it. I was there the whole time, and I never fully understood how we were doing that magic trick. But that's where we began. We were in Boston and Cambridge for about 3 weeks, including being on the Charles River at about 5 in the morning when it was very, very cold, getting the rowing scenes.
Fincher commented in an interview with New York Magazine that you have to be hyper-vigilant, especially with Sorkin's writing, because actors will want to add another course to the meal that isn't there. They'll think that if you pause between sentences, it gives the lines meaning, and we had to disabuse everyone of that notion. Is that typical? Has that been a typical experience for you in working with actors and delivering your script to the screen?
Yeah, what was amazing about David was recognizing that and wanting to nip it in the bud. I should say that's just one of the amazing things about David. He did an extraordinary job directing this movie. The artfulness he brought to this movie was jaw-dropping, and it was. I'll more directly answer your question in a moment, but on the face of it, it was a counterintuitive marriage of director and material. David is most known for being peerless as a visual director, and I write people talking in rooms, but he did bring his incredible and unique visual style to the movie. He got amazing performances out of a very talented but very young cast. And then once he was in the editing room, he was able to make scenes of typing, and sometimes scenes of just talking about typing look like bank robberies. There were about 100 ways to make this movie badly, and if you can think of 50 of them, you're a genius. David won every single bullfight with cliche. One of the things that he did well with the actors was, as he put it, disabusing them of the notion that the moments are in the pauses, that the more you pause, the more you act, the better it's going to be. When exactly the opposite is true, you have to, with this, just with the way I write, you have to drive to the end of the line. Or as the movie I did before this was Charlie Wilson's War, and Mike Nichols directed it, and he gave, the instruction he gave to the actors was start talking the moment it's your turn, and don't stop talking until your turn is over.
Before you started shooting, you and David Fincher spent 3 weeks in a room with your principal actors, with Andrew Garfield, who played the part of Eduardo Saverin, with Jesse Eisenberg, with Justin Timberlake. And you went through the script word by word by word, from what I gather, just rehearsing through the lines, talking about the meaning behind every single word on the page, making changes where necessary. What was that process like, and what do you think were the most substantial changes to the script?
It was the process was great, and I keep referring to it as a luxury, that we had this luxury of 3 weeks of rehearsal, and I should stop doing that because it's a necessity, and it should be part of the process of making any movie. This was 3 weeks of rehearsal where nobody was on their feet yet. This wasn't about staging. As you said, we were sitting around a conference room with the actors, going through the script page by page. People got to ask questions. There weren't significant changes, or what would seem to you to be significant changes. The changes were significant in that each tiny little turn of the screw gets you something a little bit better. There were some scenes that were always more trouble to me than other scenes. Justin Timberlake's big speech at the Ruby Sky nightclub. Does Ruby Sky still exist, by the way? It's still here. Okay. We actually shot that in. We found a place in L.A. that we gutted and made it look like Ruby Sky. But the speech that Sean Parker gives there. I was always almost there, but not quite. There was that frustration, if there are any football fans here, of constantly getting the ball in the red zone and having to kick a field goal, never quite getting the touchdown, and you really wanted to in that scene. So it was little things like that. So it was both about the script and also getting the actors used to each other, getting the relationship going between Jesse and Andrew. They became instant friends. We never had, David made sure that the Jets and the Sharks never rehearsed with each other. I think that there was only one day when we even looked at a scene that Jesse was in with the Winklevoss twins. Otherwise, they were separated. Most of the time, Justin and Andrew were separated because he wanted to build friendships. He also wanted to build a certain amount of wariness with the others. But those 3 weeks of rehearsal were priceless.
And was it your impression that Fincher normally follows that process, or was it because this was such a dialogue-intensive film that he wanted the actors to spend more time with the words on the page?
It was because it was such a dialogue-intensive film.
How would you compare your collaboration with Fincher to other collaborations you've had in the past? In films or in television?
Yeah, I've had a chance to work with great directors, and I've had great experiences working with them. This one was really special. It was much more, the personal relationship was much more the way, what my relationship is as a playwright with a director when I'm doing a play. We were equal partners, and usually when the director is caring about the language as much as David was caring about the language in this case, it's to mollify me. It's so my head doesn't explode. But David genuinely cared about the language as much as I did.